I love that stencil and sprayed edges on books are a trend now. In fact, you can't even go into Barnes & Noble without seeing special edition after special edition of multiple different books where they have beautiful designs on their pages. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this is sprayed edges, and it's also considered stencil edges. It's just some sort of design on the edge pages of the book. So instead of displaying your spine, we are now displaying the pages, and they're gorgeous and beautiful. But if you're an indie author, you may be wondering to yourself, is that an option for me? And it is an option for self-published authors, but typically you have to go through a book printer who prints books with sprayed edges, and one of those printers is Book Vault, and I'll be doing an experiment with them very soon. I'm actually going to be running a Kickstarter. Follow my project on Kickstarter if you want to stay tuned for that. But I'm going to be talking about today how I did DIY sprayed or stencil edges of my books for the Road Trip Snapshot series. So we can see Meet Me at the Summit, Let the Rubble Fall, and also The Trail to You and Me. So doing DIY sprayed edges on your self-published books is a great option when you want to sell your book in small numbers. If you want to sell a special edition of your book in large quantities, then it's probably best to go through a company like Book Vault. But today I'm going to be talking about the DIY method and show you exactly how I did this myself. And even if you're not an author and you just want to create beautiful copies of your book, then make sure to stay tuned. We're going to be having a lot of fun. It's going to be a little bit of an arts and craft day. Hello everyone, my name is Mandy. I'm an author, the creator of the Book Launch Planner series, and I also create courses on how to design book covers and format your book. I make weekly videos on the business of being an author, and then I also have behind the scenes access for YouTube members. So if that all sounds good to you, make sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification icon so you never miss a new upload. So now is probably a good time to let you guys know that I have these special editions of the Road Trip Snapshot series available for sale. So I made custom sprayed edges for all three of my books in the Road Trip Snapshot series. They are beautiful, I'm obsessed with it, and when you purchase these special editions, I will also sign them and throw in a couple of fun stickers for you as well. And you can have your own special edition of the Road Trip Snapshot series. You can buy it either on my website, or I'm also experimenting with TikTok Shop, so you can buy these on TikTok Shop as well. Now I will say TikTok Shop has the special perk where you get free shipping. And if my little experiment with TikTok Shop goes well, I might do another YouTube video on how to do all that. But let's talk about how to create a DIY version of sprayed edges for your book. As an FYI, I will be talking about the different products that I use to create the sprayed edges in this video. So there are supplies that you'll need. It will be all in the description, linked down below. And full disclosure, some of those links are affiliate links. So step number one is to design your edge. Do you want it to be just a solid color, or do you want an actual design? If you just want it to be a solid color, then you don't have to do any sort of fancy designing. But if you do want something a little fancier, then you're gonna have to design something. Now the way I did it personally, I went to a stock photo website and I found vector designs that I like. I was looking at all different sorts of floral designs, and then I opened it up into Photoshop and I modified the vectors a little bit, mostly to make them thicker, because I knew when it came to the vinyl stencil that you're going to have to create later, it'll be more helpful to have it thicker and bolder, in that the stencil would just come out better, and all in all you'll just have an easier time with a bolder design. Now when I opened it up in Photoshop, I made a canvas size that was the size of the spine of my book. So I measured my books, and my books are 8.5 by 5.5. So my canvas in particular for the spine of my book was 1.25 by 8.5 inches, and that just meant it was like a tiny bit too wide, which I wanted to make sure that it was a little easier to apply the stencil later on. Step number two is to cut out your stencil. Now this is when you're going to need a specific machine. Now I use a machine called the StarCraft Solo. That is because it's a very large machine. I print out and cut and sell my own stickers. I have a writing sticker store. You guys can check it out. I will leave it linked down below. But because I sell those stickers, I have a machine called the StarCraft Solo. Most people use a Cricut. It's the machine most people are familiar with. It's probably also the most user-friendly. So that's what I recommend if you had to pick out a machine. But you can also use the Cricut for a lot of different other things. But today in particular, we're using it to cut out vinyl. So you want to open up whatever you designed in Photoshop and then bring it into Cricut. You can also design it directly in Cricut as well. I'm just a Photoshop user, so I prefer designing in Photoshop and importing it that way. And then you just use your machine to cut out the vinyl. Now, if you don't have the tools that I talk about today to create your own stencil, like you don't have a Cricut, you don't plan on buying a Cricut, you can also just buy pre-made stencils on Etsy. There's a couple of them out there. Now, it's a little bit harder to customize it to your specific book, but if you're someone who has a book like A Court of Thorns and Roses and you want to create a stencil for it, there's a ton of stencils for that book series on Etsy and many other very popular book series. That way it's custom to the book, but if it's your own book that you wrote, it's going to be a lot harder to find a stencil that you'll really like. Step number 3 is to remove excess vinyl. So once you cut out the vinyl on your machine, you now have to remove the vinyl that you don't want. So for this step, I use something called a weeding tool. It's like a little tiny hook that makes it a little bit easier to grab the vinyl. You can also just peel it off with your fingers, but it is easier to have the tools. Whatever vinyl you remove is where the spray paint is going to show up later. So where I left the vinyl behind is where we have the regular color of the pages, and where it was removed is where we see the spray paint. Take your time when you remove the vinyl because it is very easy to like accidentally rip the vinyl or remove a bit that you didn't mean to, so just don't rush it. Step number 4 is to transfer your vinyl. This is going to make it super easy to move the vinyl onto the pages of the book. So transfer tape is literally just like this clear tape, and you press it down on the vinyl and then you're able to remove it from the backing. That way all you have left is exposed is this like sticky vinyl, and that's the side that's going to stick to the pages. I recommend you really use your fingers to press the transfer tape onto the vinyl. It just makes it stick a little bit better to the transfer tape, and then slowly and sometimes at a very particular angle, pull the transfer tape off and the vinyl should come off with it. Step number 5 is to prep your book. So this step is going to vary depending on whether you're using a paperback book or a hardcover book. My books personally are paperback books. I find it's just a little bit easier to do the sprayed edges on paperback books. All you have to do is apply painter's tape to the actual spine of the book. That way we don't accidentally get spray paint on it. Then when we apply it to the book press, it covers everything else. So the cover itself we don't have to worry about, it's just the spine. Whereas on a hardcover book, you want to wrap the cover itself with paper or something similar. That way you don't accidentally get spray paint on the cover. Now on this step, you also want to actually put your book in a book press. So I have one that I bought off of Amazon, and then I also had my husband make me 2 more, like just using supplies from Home Depot, because I wanted to be able to spray paint 3 different books at once. So I have one from Amazon and 2 more that my husband made. And when you put your book in the book press, if it's a paperback book, you want to make sure that it butts up directly and perfectly with the edge of the book press. And then if it's a hardcover, it doesn't really matter because you covered the hardcover cover itself with paper to protect it. Now some people go in and they, once it's in the book press, will actually sand the pages to make sure their pages are like perfectly smooth and flat. I've never done it. I don't see it as necessary. I see it as like an extra step that creates an extra mess as well. And I've never had issues with my stencils not applying nicely. Step 6 is to apply your vinyl. So this is the part where we just take the transfer tape that has the vinyl on it. We want to line it up correctly and just apply it. Now, if your design has a like up and down, make sure you know what is up and down on your book cover. My books in particular have chapter art on them, and that makes it so when I look at the pages of the book, there's a little bit of gray at the top, and I know that's the top of the book. That way I know when I'm applying the vinyl should be oriented that way. And when you're applying the vinyl, push it down really well. I use a scraping tool to really like push into it and make sure it's applied to every corner, especially where the edges of the book and the book binder are. That way I just know there's gonna be really crisp lines for the stencil, and then I slowly pull the transfer tape off. The more you do it, the more you'll learn there's like a very particular angle to do it at, but just take your time and make sure that the vinyl stays on. And if it doesn't, sometimes you can just like apply it on by hand, and then you just really want to press that vinyl on and press it down, and then preferably spray paint it right away. Sometimes when I apply vinyl and then like the next day spray paint up, the vinyl will like stick up a little bit. So right before you spray paint it, just press that vinyl down again just to make sure it's really on there. Which brings us to step number 7, which is spray paint. This is the messiest step. You just want to go ahead and spray your spray paint on. You don't need any fancy particular spray paint, but I will link the spray paint I used down below. It's definitely important to get a color match that matches your book really well, and then also make sure that you're standing far away enough that it applies nicely, and making sure that you get every crevice and corner as you're spraying. And then also, I will mention, when you store your spray paint, do not store your spray paint in a cold place. I actually ruined a brand new bottle of spray paint because I right away put it in our cold garage and left it there overnight. And then when I went to go use it the next day, it applied really globby and chunky, and no matter what, no matter how long I kept it inside, it always applied that way. So it was either a bad bottle of spray paint or it was just because it was in a cold place. Either way, store your spray paint inside where it's gonna be like warm enough that it won't affect the quality of the paint. And step 8 is to reveal your design. So once your design is completely dry, what I do is I just remove it from the book press right away. And then I basically crack the pages open. I start sifting through them. And when I do that, the vinyl already starts to come off itself. You can pick it off by hand. You can also use your weeding tool if you feel like that would be easier. And then the last step is, of course, to remove any painter's tape or paper that you use to protect your cover. And then you should have a finished, beautiful sprayed edge of your book. At this point, you can now happily display your book, and you can keep it for yourself, or you can sell it to readers who want a special edition copy of the book that you wrote. Again, I am selling the special edition copies of the Road Trip Snapshot series, so if you want to buy these, they will be linked down below. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I know it was a little different than what I typically do, but I thought it'd be really fun to show you guys a fun way to make special editions of your books, because sometimes as indie authors, we feel like we don't have these options, but we do. We just have to get a little creative with it. That is it for this video. I will see you all in the next one.